Mother, what more can I do? Open me up that I might receive. Open me up that I might believe. Oh, Great Spirit, I'm calling to you. Oh, Earth Mother, what else can I do? Teach me the way to be just and fair. Give me the strength of the mother bear. Oh, Great Spirit, I'm calling to you. Oh, Earth Mother, what else can I do? Open me up that I might receive. Open me up that I might believe. The first experience, I think that's important for me to share, is when I went seeking in the Colorado wilderness. This was in 1992, and I had left the university in 1899, been in Africa. We had been on a camping safari, had never been there before. We got home the day of the earthquake. We were home about 20 minutes here when the earth quaked, and we were so jet lagged that what was happening was quite confusing. And I realized in that quaking, those aftershocks that kept occurring, that Africa had been a quaking experience for me. And most profoundly. And we were in the house about 4 days after the earthquake. Bob and I were together. We were in our hot tub. And I looked at Bob and I said, Bob, I'm quitting my job at the university. And Bob said, you are? And I said, yes, I'm leaving. And then I shared with him the experience of quaking, and knowing Africa had quaked me, and there was something very powerful about coming home to this quaking. And he asked me, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know. I want to leave myself open. And just very briefly, as soon as I left the university, and they wanted me to wait for a while and trying to, what's this all about? And because I was director of the Psychological Services Center at the time. But I was also on sabbatical, so it gave them some time to replace me. Someone who had heard about me, Julian Silverman, who used to be the director of Esalen, word got around that I had quit my job, and the program director at Esalen then invited me to come down and lead a seminar there. I had never been to Esalen all the years I'd lived here. And wanted me to teach the medicine wheel way because I was teaching ethnic studies at the university, and the prior director of Esalen had been at the Psychological Services Center for a while, so knew me and knew I was teaching this course mainly for minority students. At least that's who attended mainly. And So while I was down there teaching the medicine world Esalen, I was down for sitting at lunch one day, and this woman introduced herself. His name was Ann Armstrong, and we had a very interesting conversation. And in the process of it, she said to me, you know, I've got to introduce you to Michael Harner. You two need to meet. And so I followed that one. See, I'm just open. I don't know what's coming. You know, have no idea. And I've said I'll just be open and see what comes. And so then I met Michael Harner, and then subsequently took his intensive training program with him. And then in the following year, he asked me to teach on the faculty of the foundation and teach advanced courses down in Southern California. Well, obviously, we made a very quick recognizing of one another's path. And my own personal background from my Lakota roots had already, as far as I was concerned, that this was just but another take on that walk, what was happening with the foundation. And I loved learning specific techniques and all that through the foundation with Michael. It was very important. But I found myself in a place of real confusion. I confused myself and confounded myself about what was really calling me. This seemed a part, but not like a full commitment of me. And some pieces were missing for me in the program the foundation offers and that I was even teaching. And it felt like a deep, deep, deep restlessness inside me, very deep. And I knew I needed to go off in quest. And at the time, Sandra Ingerman, who's with the Foundation for Shamanic Studies, and I had done some teaching together and began forming what remains a very close friendship. So we decided, well, there's probably a few others like us that are confused, because she appreciated my questions and she had her own wonderings. And so we got together a group of 7 of us by invitation, and we went off into the San Juan wilderness. And the invitation was, if you're at a place in your life where you're restless of spirit, or you know something more is calling you and you don't know what that more is, and have been in shamanism, because that's the term, that's a kind of the coin of the realm, though I like to use many other terms when I'm speaking about spiritual path and shamanism. But I respect where the word came from and the people who used it, well, that meaning. So that was the invitation we sent out. We were there one day. We started doing our dreaming, and Sandy and I were co-leading this. And I'd had a very clear message in a dream before we arrived to the wilderness that we really need to take seriously this invitation and this restlessness, and that we needed to go off individually and see the group as a container for bringing back our experiences and sharing if desired, but not to seek into the group for the quest. And so we set aside 2 days for this. This was 5 days together total. And I took my rattle and my eagle bone whistle. My eagle bone whistle has been very sacred to me from my uncle. And I started, as soon as I went out the door, I used my rattle and I asked the spirits to lead me and take me to whatever place that I should dwell for a while for my questing. And then I immediately felt sort of like a tug pulling from here into a certain direction. And I moved across that direction. This involved going across some hills and scree and fording a little alpine river, meadows. It's a very large wilderness area. And there wasn't anyone else around but us and the other inhabitants, non-human inhabitants. And I ended up going very, very far. And then I had a sense to stop at a certain area, and I stopped there. And it looked quite prickly where I was stopping. There was little cacti and prickly things, and did not look like a very pleasant spot to sit in for a while. But I sat myself down and listened and offered prayer. And then I began rattling. And then I heard some sounds of birds around me, and I took my eagle bone whistle. And for the first time in my life, I discovered that I could use my whistle to make the same sounds these birds were making. So I found myself in this blissful experience of being bird and hearing varieties of birds answer me. And for a while, I don't know how long I was there, it seemed like, a lifetime, but for a while, it became so blissful that suddenly I remembered I had forgotten my intention because I was now in such conversation. As soon as I remembered that, I heard a huge squawking. And I took it to be a signal, yes, you have. Return to intention. And as soon as I did that, I opened my eyes and I put my whistle back around my neck and I started to rattle. And then over in the distance to my right, I perceived what seemed to me to be a dark sort of thicket-shaped area at the end of this alpine meadow, calling to me. The shadows and the quality of light. There just seemed to be shapes there. And I went over to this area and I was moving along the edge of the thicket line now. It's quite dense with the trees behind. Moving along the edge of the thicket line. And I heard a very, very large, rustling and bushes and everything like that. And I paused. And I did my rattle very quietly to center myself and to open myself, not to stop myself from what I was hearing. And then I heard a kind of and everything seemed to go cold and dark. And there was like a musky scent suddenly flooding me. And in that very moment of this flooding of my senses, I looked in front of me and this large bear was standing up. This bear was about as far between me and that table over there, however many feet that is. Very close, I could see completely. I was in such an altered place, and in this presence of the birds, all this was still in me, of course, that I looked at this great bear standing there, and I felt my eyes immediately soften. And just a prayer passing through me of thank you. And as soon as that prayer passed through me, I heard more rustling and saw two cubs coming around her. And in that moment, I just shivered with fear. It's just that shivering before you even have a thought, right? And somewhere in me, though I'd never had experience with bears before, somewhere in me, I knew, uh-oh, this is a mother with cubs. Danger. Fear. Right. And I saw her cuff one of the cubs, like to get behind her, like that. And she never took her eyes off of me. Right. And I slowly, very slowly, came down to my knees. I wasn't even thinking slowness. I just slowly came down to my knees. And my rattle was going as quietly as could be, but that rattle never stopped. Very quiet. And as I came slowly down, my eyes softened. I remember so well, I can even feel the flood of feelings in me now. I remember thinking, feeling, we have a great relationship. And I wanted to let her know that I loved her and that I cared for her children and would do them no harm. And as soon as I felt that go through me, there was the equal prayer, care for our children, to her. It's amazing, I'm crying, but you know, I haven't shared this for quite a while, but it was so powerful. It is still so powerful. And as soon as my prayer of care for our children, too, followed mine, I care for your children. We have a great relationship. She dropped to all fours. And I'm on my knees. And she just stood there, this large, great being. And just looked at me. But so much passed between us. And then she started moving in front of me across the thicket, the edge of the thicket. And her cubs were following her. And she moved up this hill towards the thicket, and I saw her moving into the tree line. And I felt an incredible covenant had been made. I had made a covenant with her. Whatever that meant, I didn't know. But I knew in that moment I'd made a covenant. And so I was down after she moved up. And I didn't stare or watch her. I just sensed her out of my peripheral vision moving up. And then I just allowed myself to fall to the ground further, so that my head was now on the ground. And I was just praying and awareing myself of the fullness I felt in myself and the fullness of love. And then as I started to come up from bringing my head up and from my knees, I suddenly became very clear. You made a covenant here. There's some agreements to keep. Came through me. And I started to rattle acknowledging that. And I will find out what those agreements are, because I had no idea what all this meant. And I will find out what this covenant means. And I will learn what it means to keep covenant, because I didn't know what that meant either, right? And as I'm rattling and doing this, and I'm rattling then to the earth, and then bringing up my rattle, whatever. And then I see, as I lift upward, this eagle circling. And eagle, previously, from my teachings and relations with my uncle, carried in me a blessing and also sees far. And I felt that I would be helped to see far eventually. Just be here, whatever the covenant and agreement is, encircled. And so I just knew, okay? So in terms of that, I'd gone seeking guidance. Right? I'd gone as a seeker. And I certainly received. The following was to come. The one part of this which I found very interesting of this whole experience, all of it, but I mean a sort of an aside, but very important, is that as I turned to leave this area, now my knees are wobbly and I'm just trembling with the whole of it, I hear a huge crashing from behind me over to the left. And one of the people, Alan, who was in the retreat, is screaming and running down the hill. Right. And he's screaming, there's a bear, there's a bear. He's some distance from me, right, but it doesn't matter. And so I just quietly keep walking, and our paths intersect because he comes to warn me. And I just say, I know, and everything's okay, Alan. And then as we're standing there, I can see a woman who was sitting down further in the meadows. It was very beautiful, all these flowers, is coming walking, and she's running up the meadow. Not walking, she's running up the meadow. And she just says to Alan, did you see all that? Right. It's all what? Carol. And I said, please don't speak about my experience. Because suddenly I felt a perturbation. We gathered that evening, late that evening, to share our questing experiences of whatever was to be shared. And I had me in a dilemma because I was not ready to share. I was still so. And then Marilyn shared in a way that I respected, and then I did something with it. But basically, her experience included seeing what happened with me, right? Her questing, and so she needed to share. And then when others asked me, so in that very moment, I thought somebody is witnessing, and that's a teaching to me. I don't know yet what that means, because I was going to be quiet. I don't know what that means. And then when Sandy quietly turned to me, Sandy knows my quietness, and quietly turned to me and said, is there anything you want to share? And I listened. And as I listened, I felt her come, her spirit come, across that meadow from that thicket. And I stood up and I said, yes, she wants to share of herself with you. And then I just went around, but it wasn't me, went around, and as I touched each person, truly was her pause. and she wanted her breath on them. And without realizing until I hear myself right now, that was probably the beginning of following, right? And it was my first experience of a spirit walking into me and merging with me to be for somebody else. I surprised myself by my flood of feelings. I think that some of these things we don't know till after the revelation, in retrospect, right? But I believe that the spirit and the force that was calling me was the great, great mothering powers that are part of this universe that are a gift of God, of Great Spirit, however you want to say. It's difficult to talk about all these sometimes. In the sense that probably what was missing, probably what was missing was that there was sort of a technique and a how to do and a kind of a performance and all of this sort of stuff that had become the way to teach. And also that my own learnings had come through my uncle, right? And that because I had been sent from the reservation to an orphanage, my own mothering was absent, right? I learned to mother myself, I think, in orphans, but I'm talking about mothering in a, and that this force, this power that was calling is the one who is related to the powers of giving birth, of death, of the cycles of life, of compassion, and regeneration. And I call that the mothering powers. And I want to use that in the broadest sense. And now I say that because those mothering powers come in many different forms now. There's the fathering too, but I mean mothering. Yeah. Briefly, I think the patterns I see there would be when you go seeking, remember you're never without helpers. And when you go seeking, you will receive. And leave yourself open for the unexpected. Right? And always somewhere, the pattern for me, always somewhere there will be times of fear. That's part of the whole process. And always there will be those moments of fear when your body trembles. And remember, Carol, that part of that pattern of fear is actually awe. Awe. And not fear from which to flee or to remove oneself from the experience. And that it's very important for our souls and for us to really take times apart on this path. But that's what's common through all. That's very important, take times apart. That some things cannot be done with other humans. That the spirit needs a different entryway. And we confuse ourselves, and I've confused myself and had to learn this pattern by always thinking my help will either come through prayer or whatever, and there's always got to be human beings connected in the process somewhere, right? And truly there is, because we're all part of the process, but time apart. Take time apart. And the other for me is that the other pattern is that there keep showing up way back from childhood. Now I'm going through, but I'm not tell all this. But they're now it's almost like you'll have an experience and you value the experience, and then the reoccurrence of it in different forms is just lifting you to a higher quality of knowing. Higher quality. I'm not putting one down on the other, but just a higher quality of knowing. So you can practice in your spiritual way a higher standard of excellence within yourself. And so for me, the mothering aspect, and by that the holding for me has come through the there is someone who helps bring you into this world, and not just your biological mother, not just your father. The Spirit helps bring you in the world. There's spirits that help you when you're here. There is comfort as well as challenge. There is shattering because we need to be shattered, like the husk taken off the seed, right? And there is help when you leave this world. You will be held. And there is help in another world, right? So that's all been part of what learning bear medicine and learning with bear and all that. But bear now is the Virgin Mary, is da-da-da, and it's also incorporates the divine and masculine form and so forth. Probably one that brought me into seeking as a child was feeling orphaned. Even though I had a family and a sister with me in the orphanage, I had a family of 5. But my father died when I was 21 months old, and I never really knew him. And my mother's people disowned her. And they lived in Mexico for a while. And then eventually they took her back in after his death and took us in. But then, as was the way with the BIA at the time, we were either going to be sent off to Catholic schools, and she would not have that. She wanted us to go to another place where there wasn't that influence. And so we were sent far away to Texas and from South Dakota. And I think early as a child, and I look at letters that I wrote her and stuff like that, that I was seeking, and maybe I was seeking to know unity, maybe I was seeking to know that my whole family was valued and loved. But also I had some incredible experiences in this orphanage because it was beautiful land. So it was like seeking, okay, so maybe there. But I don't want to psychologize as seeking, because maybe I came into the world restless, right? And the other seeking that I would say has come, someone asked of me something. So a paragraph. I'm aware of a paragraph. In '95, a person from I shouldn't say the museum name. A person from one of the well-known anthropology museums called because there was disturbance in the museums. Strange things were happening, and she'd heard about me from a physician that she saw, right? And in San Francisco, and they were concerned about these disturbances, and I went up there and just moved around, and indeed there was great disturbance. I felt it immediately. Now, I had never worked with bones. I had never worked with body parts in the room, right? I didn't have any idea, except I knew help was needed, right? And so once I had all the experience there and sort of knew the layout with them of what was possible and not, knew that I could go in there and be all by myself and nobody else around, because they needed help, or I could bring helpers. Once I knew the setup, I went off, and for 6 months, I spent time working with the spirits and journeying to see what does one do with trapped souls in bones, And then that began another process of working for 4 to 5 months of going up there regularly with each of these bones and help release the souls that were trapped and help them cross over. So that's where something comes out. I don't know how to reply, and I have to go seeking. I receive, and very important, Mark, I really have a very strong issue about it. If you don't follow through, you get in trouble. Really, that's big in me.
What kind of trouble?
I have it be that if people go seeking and they ask the spirits for something, and the spirits give them guidance, you have to sort of test it out, because we live in this world. The guidance you always get, has to be appropriately manifested, is what I want to say. I think the spirits desert people. I think that you can go through periods of real crisis because you've received something that needed manifesting, and now it's stuck in you, right? And there can be perturbations in your outer world because of this. Now, we live in that kind of world, so here I am, and I've been assigned a job and to follow through on something that I asked for, right? And I'm not following through, I'm just muddling about it and thinking about it, wondering whether or not I should do it and so forth, or I've even forgotten it, right? But my husband, or someone else I know, senses something dark is here. Senses something's blocked. Senses something disturbance. Now, I'm very fortunate if I have friends or husband who will let me know they sense this, as opposed to me finally I have to get in such a crisis. So that's a follow through. I always tell people, I don't always, but usually I say, when you do your journeys, shamanic journeys, when you do journeys and you go to spirits and they give you something to do, don't journey to them again until you've done it. Why take up their time if you're not going to follow through? I mean, I'm being very cryptic, but
Thank you.
I'm not as, I'm gentle about these matters, but also.
That sounded very bare.
Oh, that's a great comment. I believe it is.
That sounded
That's a
bare.
terrific comment. Yeah, it is. It is. It is. That's like someone telling me something will happen in a retreat and someone's endangering themselves in the circle. I don't stop to figure out and explain it all. I say, we don't do that, or don't do that. It's like sometimes there's danger, you have to draw the line. Someone will say, oh, here comes Grizzly. Kidding me.
It's like
The various tools that I use in seeking guidance, actually the practice and the tools and the techniques are all kind of connected in me. For example, I use the rattle, and if I think of a technique with the rattle, it's simply to use your rattle, and I use my rattle in different ways. You can do it, I don't even know how I'm facing you, but you can do it clockwise, counterclockwise. If you want to go back to the ancestors, do it on me, do it on others. This is seeking guidance when I'm trying to lift up and call forth in a seeking way. The spirits are the little invisible aspects of ourselves that are available around ourselves and within all the time. I use the rattle, and I use the rattle in my daily life. When I plant my bulbs, the soil and all the bulbs get rattled. When we have meal together, we rattle our food. So for me, this is a primary tool, technique, and practice, right? So I both make and find, and I'm given different kinds of rattles. Drumming. drumming. I think if I didn't have a drum, that I would probably use sticks or something to bring forth the sound of her heartbeat deep down, and my heartbeat, and the animals and the trees. There's something that just bringing forth the drum I use. And I do have different techniques with the drum, because this drum, for example, which is came from a Sami shaman when we were in Lapland a while back, has various designs on it, and all these designs have meaning. And he shared these with me and then taught me how to find from spirits any other meaning for me. So when you ask me a question and I want to seek information for you, let's say Mark is saying, where shall I move? You know, or Mark is saying, what do I do to prepare for my twins that are coming? Okay. Then I have a flat bone, piece of antler that he gave me with the drum, that I then beat and it moves around. And then finally it comes to a place of stopping. And I will drum as long as necessary till it comes to that place of stopping. Therein is the reply to Mark, or to me, or to whatever, for a group. So I use the drum that way for divination, for seeking. And I use, mask for seeking. I am seeking to evoke and circle, or in this environment here, the ones who come from the land of Siberia. Right? So this is a Siberian mask made by a Siberian shaman, right? Well, it's sort of like calls to like, if you will, in a good way, in a beautiful way, right? So then I'll wear my mask, right? And I will go around, in a circle, or in my house if I'm wanting to call the Siberian ancestor spirits, because they're very powerful, very important in this whole tradition. And this particular one is the medicine spirit. I mean, this particular mask has to do with the healing powers of the man, the male healing powers. Okay, this one is there for the plant. This is the woman's, and it has to do with fertility and food, right? The rains, whatever has to do with abundance for the people, including the caribou, right, or the reindeer, whatever, the abundance for people. This kind of mask with these very markings have been made for hundreds and hundreds of years. Right now, this. So if I want to seek connection with that, then I will use this. I will use it when it's been dry here too long, and I'm starting to worry about Santa Cruz County. Right. And I use crystals, but in a very particular way. I'm not, long ago, the spirits taught me that I was to work with crystals only in a very special way and not to get into the whole crystal phenomenology. Though I really enjoy hearing from others, and I find it fascinating. The crystal that I will show you, this particular crystal is a good example. I only have 2 crystals I use. There is a lady that lives in this crystal, and you could see her. And I seek information from this lady. And one of the ways I do it, for example, when we were in Ireland at an old stone there, a megalithic stone, right, that was hidden in a field, and not one of those stones, that's on your tourist route, hidden in a field. And I went to the stone, and after doing some cleansing and calling and blessing and thanking her, then I put this against the stone, and I close my eyes and I listen, because I hear as well as see. Right. She does this for healing work for people. She loves to be set on their body, and she will show me where there's a pattern of illness or disturbance going on. Right. Like I say, that's those. I only use those two crystals, and they have taught me how to use them for that. And I believe those are the. Oh no, I do want to say that I also seek through. I scout like crazy for around the world for whatever's coming out on the internet that has to do with potential shamanic tools. And so, for example, I have the Oracle program, and I have one called the Alchemist. I'm not looking for just anything. I want to see, does it have depth, and is it a program that the spirits can move through? Right. And so, before I go to any retreat, I consult two of those programs, right? And I use an astrology program in my planning. So I seek guidance from the heavens. Not that I believe there's a cause and effect, but I do believe we're all one and that there's some relationship. And so I seek to inform myself as much as possible about those relationships through these programs. The guidance comes from me in, I think, mainly three basic forms. One is through my dreams, through the dream world. And that's become increasingly important. It's almost like the more I do my practice and walk this path and have been gifted with lots of experiences of teaching, it's almost like the more the dreaming world is the one they come through. It's a totally unguarded, kind of undeveloped, all of that world. So it's like that's where a lot of guidance comes for me now. And generally those are very, very visual. Very, very visual. So that's a form. It's very, very visual. And I hear. So the wind, earlier I spoke of wind as we were setting up. And that's because there's a guidance that comes in the form of, all I can say is the one who whispers of the wind. That's what I call her. And there's a whispering that comes. Just usually catches me totally unawares. That does it, but it comes. That's the form. And I have found that I cannot cause that, nor can I control it. It's like dreams. And guidance comes. So there's a hearing and there's a dreaming. Those are the forms. And the visual.
Sometimes does it also come as a inner voice, maybe?
Oh yeah, I call them the impulses of the heart, because that's how I experience the guidance. It's almost like an impulse, and that particular form of guidance to me is very active. It's like when that comes, there's a movement involved almost immediately. Do you understand? That's for me a very special. I have that different from intuition. That particular form of guidance. It's more. Yeah.
How do you tell the difference? How do you tell the difference between guidance and intuition, or
when that particular form comes, it's like it's by the impulses of the heart. It's almost as if it's almost as if God came and sat in my heart and told me something right then and moved me to do it. And it's just that clear. And my intuition to me is more complicated and more subtle. And my intuition I call almost like a sensory capacity. For me, it's full of sensing. Intuition is. This is something totally different. Is that clear? No. I'm going to give you a very brief example. I'm in the park. I'm walking with Arusha, our dog. This was about 2 weeks ago, and I hear in me remember Jacob at the base of the tree. Dror needs to see what the new dream is. This is what I hear. This is clear as I'm speaking to you. Right. I pause in my walking, and then in front of me, where there's a park, where there's a tree stump with moss around it and so forth, then for just a flash, it's like I see this form leaning against the tree, and it seems like I see shapes moving, up and down by this form, and I seem to know this is Jacob. Now, what does this mean? I don't know, but then I walk home, and I'm driving home, and I think I've got to call Ziva. Well, Ziva's in Israel. Right. I've got to call Ziva, because Dror is her son's name, right? And this is a message for Ziva, right? Now that's my working on what happened. Now maybe you'd call that second part intuition. I don't know, but I know what happened, what I heard. So as soon as I have to do it right now. That's what's so clear to me, right? When that happens, when that comes up, it's like, And so I call Ziva and tell her what happened. And there's this long pause on the phone, and then I hear Ziva say, "Oh, Carol," and then she's calling to Ellie. I can hear her sort of in there, and I don't know what's happening, right? And then Ellie's her husband. And then Ziva says, Dror just crashed yesterday in getting his pilot wings. He's been in the Israeli Air Force wanting to be a fighter pilot. And he had to do his final parachute jump. She's telling me all this. I'm explaining to you. I just found this out on the phone call, right? And she said, and he broke his leg, right? And the bones are all around the ankle are all crushed. He's in the hospital. How did you know? And I said, I didn't know. I'm giving you a message. And then Ellie gets on the phone, and her husband says, do you know who Jacob is? And I said, no, but I knew Dror's name. And then he proceeds to tell me about Jacob, then he says, you probably have heard the name Jacob to me, right? About being at the base of the tree, and about the ladder to heaven, and about the visiting of the angels, and about him being lame. And then he goes and gets his Bible, whatever he would call it. And then he starts reading this to me on the phone about where his sinew is torn, and so forth, right? And the femoral stuff. And that this is what happened to their son. And I'm just astonished. And a part of me is astonished, and a part of me says, there's always that sense of awe. Always. And there's a piece of me that says, Carol, you shouldn't be surprised that the spirits work this way, but I can't help it. It's just always amazing to me how tended we are if we just listen. And how much the spirits help us take care of each other and the whole world if we just listen, you know? So that wasn't that, I'm just giving you that as an example. Do you call that intuition? But that's how guidance comes sometimes for me. And I always know to act on that. I had to learn how to share. I'm talking about now much younger. I had to learn how to share and with whom to share and the ethics of sharing and all of that. Now I really just have surrendered and trust spirits so much, and they've educated me that, but if it's intuition, see, I can always say that, so I have no problem sharing. This is just a hunch, Mark, right? But if it's that other, and there is the command that comes with it to deliver the message, then I need to do that. So that's why I've had to separate these. But I think I've always known there was a difference, but I just didn't understand.
You could feel the difference.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I could feel the difference. Yeah. One really feels like something outside of me came in, and the other is all my instincts and knowing and da-da-da. I mean, I think I have a rich intuitive world. I mean, all that's in process and lifting up out of the depths for me something. Yeah. The obstacles that I have some of the, Lord knows, I mean, it's unlimited, but a few that I think of are, if I haven't checked in with myself and cleansed myself and opened myself, then I have an agenda. I have an expectation. I'm going with the question, I've already got my answer hidden, right? But those kind of obstacles where we're really putting ourselves, and actually sort of an unclean way with spirits, telling them what they should tell us. That's a big obstacle, and it's very subtle in us, I think. And another obstacle could be that you have already not made time in your life to receive whatever guidance might come. So in seeking guidance, it's important then to set a pathway for that guidance to come in, and also have a doorway that you could walk out following the guidance, right? And I think often we get so rushed, right, that we don't see how powerful an obstacle that is, you know. And I can see my experience is that when you walk this path, and I mean this path in the broadest sense, the path of heart, seeking to follow and related to spirit, seeking to receive and seeking to follow. When you walk this, that the spirits come to us in the most blessed way possible. Doesn't mean a good way in terms of us or happy or blissful or anything, but in the most blessed way possible. We will not be given more than we can hold. So I think I was saying that I believe that, but I mean, I was aware of myself thinking of one of the obstacles was that to carry the fear or the worry or the concern that more will be asked of me than I'm able to do. And I think people have this, really have this, and in a certain way, the more we travel along, there are points when this worry is even bigger because we know previously we've been asked to do certain things, and now we wonder, my God, am I going to have to move again, or am I going to have to write, or am I going to be uprooted, am I going to be injured again? And so it's sort of like the obstacle becomes really the challenge underneath and the opportunity to not carry that concern or that worry with you, and to remember that whatever you're being asked to, or whatever guidance is being given to you, you really can do it, or else you would not have been asked. And the other obstacle to me is to think that whatever we receive, we have to do alone. And people often will forget to gather helpers. And that's a real obstacle, because sometimes we're given big stuff, you know, blessed be. And we think we have to carry it out. And we forget to call on helpers. Or we forget to further ask for guidance on helpers, right? Whether those helpers be human or non-human. Yeah. And I think the only other, well, I shouldn't say the only other, I think the obstacle that's been important for me to be alert for, have my antenna out for, is in terms of seeking further guidance, knowing where to go next, is I set up my own obstacle. If I don't search out and move myself into experiences where I am really a beginner, I'm ignorant, I'm a novice, I know nothing about. So I can truly have the experience of being in kindergarten with the spirits, however they're manifested in this particular form. Say I know nothing about Sufi. And so, Carol, make sure you go out there. That's an opportunity, right? Because I think that there's so many pathways that which a spirit brings into the world for us. Each one offers so much to us, and it's so important, and that people will get onto one path and one way of doing things and start teaching, and then the demands of the world come in, and then we get caught in those demands, right? And pretty soon we're just in a mirror, right? And our students are just mirroring us, you know, because nothing new, right? And I believe that's a real obstacle, a true obstacle to getting further guidance on your next turning or change. Right. And so I try to, and I ask Bob to remind me, and I even ask my students who've been with me for a while, if they hear something that's happening, I try to remind myself that once every other month, do something where you're back in kindergarten. Know that place, because then more guidance will come in for you. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
Excuse me?
I guess when you're at that place, you're more open.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And when I've been at those places, because I do this, and I mean, we're going to go off in 2 weeks down to learn with this guy on Celtic shamanism, and I've never been in a group with this around this subject. And my experience has been sometimes when I'm at these, my whole vision for some piece of work that's waiting for me to do comes through when I'm tending this, right? That's wonderful when that happens, you know. And also I'm building these bridges. Well, there are certain activities or what I think of as certain practices. I don't want to say sacred practices because all is sacred, but that's what I'm trying to hold in me is a sense of certain sacred activities that over the years, I've been shown to do or discovered in doing them their value. And I do those, One is always rattling our food and bringing our food. One is at the end of the day. Bob snores sometimes. So sometimes he'll come sleep in the house if it's too much, or I will. It's very great that we have 2 different bedrooms. He doesn't always, but sometimes he will. And I realized how important it was to come to the ending of our day together. And we'll either fan each other, but there's some blessing that happens. There's some blessing that happens between us. And then we go to bed. But this is before we get into bed. So we pause. And that means we get to have the opportunity in that moment to be together, whether I go to sleep right then or not, or whether he does. We end our day with that blessing and go into the night. And thankfulness. So there are certain activities like that are part of my dailiness. And if I forget, or like if Bob's away, or I'm at a retreat, we're not together, it's very interesting because it's like I have to do something there, because their meaning is more than just the 2 of us. It's sort of almost like when we come to the end of the day, blessed and thanking each other, we're blessed and thanking the universe for all couples everywhere. All family, all family. So I find I need to do something like that when I'm at retreats, or we're away from each other. So certain practices that are daily here, and then when I'm away, their dailiness needs to come in a different form. You've presented me, you or someone has presented me with an opportunity or a letter, whatever. You've offered something to me, and you've offered something to me since before I came into this world. I mean, if you want to talk about spirit, and I thank you, and in that process of thanking, you offer even more. Right. I don't mean I expect it. I mean, that's not what it's all about. But I'm talking about what we experience as humans. The process of thanking. It cheers the heart, blesses the soul. Right. I thank my dog. She knows when I thank her. Her tail wags, she just vibrates more. And so I have somehow the thanking, and also the thanking before asking. The thanking before asking. Be really, I want to say the way. I don't mean that in a presumptuous sense, but I do want to say be the way to be with God, to be with Spirit. And also, to me, to thank. To thank before I ask is somehow to acknowledge in me, and in circles, to thank before I ask is somehow to acknowledge that I have always known your blessing. I know you bless me, though I may not know that what just happened is a blessing. I know you do. I'm talking about a relationship with Spirit. I know you bless me. And And I thank you. I thank you. And then when the request comes for guidance or whatever, it follows right under that of I know you've always blessed me. And then for me, it's almost also a way of saying, and I've been so blessed, I don't really need it if you don't have time. You know what I mean? I mean, there's a part of that that's a kind of, you know, somehow that's what happens in me.
It opens the way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's sort of, it just lets, for me, it totally unleashes that aspect of us that grasp for the way. That aspect of us that grasp for the answer. You know, that kind of, and we really become aware this is the granting way. All is granted. All is granted. You know, it's just us finding the framing of how to ask so we know what's already been granted. I don't mean in predestination. I'm just talking about the whole blessing way. I hope I surrender to spirits. And I've had some struggles around surrender. In one direction, as, let me say this, as a teacher, and as a teacher, and one holding some perhaps ways or some wisdom. I don't want to put highfalutin terms on it, but one holding, you know, like some legacy that needs to be passed on. I don't need to be holding it. I surrender. Bottom line, right? That there's no fun in not surrendering. I mean, on that one, and I can't do my job if I don't. I can't teach. The experiences for me around surrender have been more on the personal level and the personal practice and learning what that means. I'm going to give you a good example. I mean, I've had to be knocked on the head around this one some. When I was down in the desert this last year, I've done an annual retreat for about 8 years down the Mojave Desert. And Bob had just been about 4 weeks before, they had found a very large melanoma. And it was back here where he wouldn't see, and I had seen this war change, but develop so fast, you know, it's expanded so fast. And and they had to do some major surgery and then go into larger margins. So he went down there with a fairly deep cut excision way down, and scared. As was I, you know. And when we were in the desert, one of the things that we do in most of our circles, I do in most of the circles that I teach, is we have one night where we do healing ceremony. Now sometimes we do it daily, of course, but we have one night. A lot of shamanic work that's being done, that's taught through the foundation, otherwise, has only one-on-one, has really built in the medical model. Is right. Well, all my experiences, younger, have been the things happen in the family or the extended family or in the village, because I didn't have the money or wherewithal to do any training and go far places, but I had my own history, and then I had my work with spirits, right? So I listened to them. So their word to me a few years ago was, the whole circle, people heal together. Pay attention to the ethics. Teach people to listen and to follow. But whether or not, just because you know a technique, you can heal. But forget that one, Carol. What you want to do is help people see how to allow the healing spirits to come through them and not get themselves in the way. So that's been my teaching these last few years and my practice with people. And so here we are, so here I am saying, you know, because there were new people there who had, it's the first experience. But we had done 4 days of being together. We'd done an all night together, right? So I'm saying, okay, the membranes of our consciousness are really perforated, and the spirits have ways to come in. And if you will let them come in and work through you, well, they do exactly what's needed. You don't even have to hear what's wrong with someone. That's already known. It may just confuse you. It may not be what's wrong anyway, right? So we have our circle, and I asked for who would wish for some healing work to be done on their behalf that night. And then those people lay down, and then the rest of us drawn together, and then it just moves. People move around, and maybe 2 people work with someone, maybe 3. Just move around until all of us know the spirits have left the room. The work's been done. The healing's occurred. And that's known. It's very clear. And so Bob lay down. Now, you must understand, Mark, one of the trainings that I got, because I teach for the foundation. So remember, I wear 2 cloths, if you will. One's really teaching in an honorable way. Their techniques and their methods are not departing from those, because it's like a course. Right now I'm teaching less and less of them because that's harder for me to hold. All right, but I really respect what Michael's done, and and then the other is my, or the path that I'm discovering all the time. Not really my path, I'm discovering all the time. And over here, we have taught, it's been very strong, you do not work on family members. All right, and the example has to do with, what's his name? Anyway, the fellow who went to the lower world, and the singer who went down to bring back, gets lost. The whole point is the attachment to the other can be so strong, and you want the outcome to be such. You get in the way, right? And vice versa. The person gets in the way because of their relationship with you, right? So we don't do family members. Well, that's a little bit of the medical model. You get that, don't you? Physicians and treat themselves. Okay. We are going around the room. This is surrender. I'm back to surrender. This is a major teaching. That's why I'm telling you this story. And I have this drum, which is my healing drum, the one I healing. And I'm going around, and I'm seeking in the dark, because I wear a mask, I'm seeking in the dark where the spirits want me to come to whom, right? And so I move around, and I've worked with a couple of people, with the spirits, and others will move around, and so forth. Then I'm continuing to move around, and then I feel right here, like this, towards Bob. Okay, I stop myself, and I say, no, you're not going to do that. Right? You don't do that, Carol, is what I'm telling myself. Right? And so I continue beating, and I'm going around the room in the dark, right? And then now I'm on the other side of him, and it pulls me, something goes like this. And I look, and I realize it's going back to Bob, and I'm saying, no, you're not going to do that, right? That is not ethical. Then I go around this whole large circle, right? And remember, I'm wearing a mask and I can't see. I'm seeing invisibly, right? And we clear big space around everybody so nobody trips. And I'm going around, right. And then I feel the tug. And I look again, and I realize I'm very, probably about 4 people over from Bob. And I stop myself, and I say, you are not going to do this. This is because you're so concerned about Bob, and you're so frightened for him, right? And for yourself, right? That he's going to die, and very soon. I mean, I'm giving myself now a lecture, right? So that I can go back and work for other people, right? And then I start beating my drum harder as I'm lecturing myself. and then and sort of entered this altar state again. And I swear to God, this big paw lifted the back of my, blouse I was wearing, just like that, and shook me like I was a little doll, right? I mean, really shook me, right? and then just moved me across there to Bob, moved me across to Bob. And by the time I got to Bob, it was not me, it was Grizzly. And this bear just pounced on Bob. I mean, just pounced, right? And Bob, you know, flew up. I mean, he was, you know, frightened, you know, this is pouncing, right? And this bear just worked on him and worked on him, worked on him, right? And then suddenly the bear was gone and I was through, right? And I got up and I thought, oh my God, what just happened to myself, you know? And then, and we don't talk about the healing scene. We come to the next morning, we don't talk about that night. So the next morning we're in circle and Bob needs to share his experience of this bear. And then he starts talking about what was taken out of him that was black and sludgy, right? And that he almost heart attacked himself with fear when this bear pounced on him, right? And then this bear continued working and took this huge, huge, he said mud pot of fear that was here in him, right? And then he said, I have never encountered such a large bear. Right. Well, he doesn't see who's doing it, right? And so then I'm sitting there, and then eventually I share for the circle for me. This is a major teacher, because the others, of course, had been to the healing scene and all that. And then Bob said at one point after, he said, was that you? Kind of like that, like he didn't believe it because we don't do it. And I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. When the spirit, the healing powers need to come through you on behalf of another person, don't you sit and bargain your own stuff. There are ethics, but finally, you know, and it was a big surrender number. I mean, that was a big one for me, Mark. I mean, really big. And it was not only big in the sense of how hard I was shaken, it was also big that if you don't surrender, we'll shake you, right? And trust us, damn it. Trust us. What have we been showing you? Working with you, teaching you all these years, loving you and blessing you. If when it comes time to do something, you're going to sit there and say no, because you have certain ethics. It was a big, obviously, as you can tell, big. And so I'm so thankful. I just, like a big surrender lesson. How has following guidance affected my life? Well, I can't imagine a more joyful life that's come from following guidance. Following guidance has resulted in making huge, major, life-changing decisions, one of which I've already shared, but there have been others. From the most personal of my own habits and behaviors to my most intimate relationship with Bob, all of it following guidance. Being sometimes asking or seeking and receiving new ways of understanding or what needs to change or how to be. And I take that from the personal to Bob to circles to Rusha to everything. And it's really following. I mean, I've made these changes. I've been scared sometimes and all kinds of things like that. And I can remember standing in front of the cave in Montana last year when I was making prayer before going in, and I said, you know, my prayer was, do with me as you will. but I hope the lessons can be a little gentler. Now, that was a hope. And sort of people around laughed. I mean, the women's circles, they knew about my jobbing, and they knew that there's been some, but I also knew that I meant that. If it's possible, could they be a little more gentle? But if it's not, maybe I'm a difficult learner or something. But just the following the guidance to me has been, I just can't imagine any greater feeling of being blessed, joy. And I want to add one other thing about following guidance, because about 4 years ago, one of the visions I had when I was down desolate, it was a very clear vision in a dream, in the dream world, regular vision, had to do with, I saw myself moving with others, people of other color, other genetic, moving across different lands. And we had candles, and we were walking like in what looked like old markings that were left, and looked to me, the markings were sort of large. It was like a trail across the lands, and then there was even a little pattern on the ocean, on the Pacific Ocean, right? And the little markings almost looked like I Ching lines, changing lines, sort of like that. So as we moved, our balance was a little differently. It was almost like we were doing this dance, very slow dance together, as we would fit, And I woke up from that dream, and then I journeyed and sought more revelation for what this dream was about. And it was very clear to me that my call was to open up to and learn how and follow the building and the creating and the sustaining of more international circles than those I was teaching at the time. And that I was to take myself to other lands and walk with other people in their paths, right, on their lands. And that was all part of what this dream was about. And so I made this prayer. Yes, okay, I don't know what this means, but it's very clear to me, it's very important. And so I set aside some of my own income, started making a percentage the way one would tithe, and putting it into a separate account when Cruz would assist me. And this was it was earmarked to help people from other countries who needed to come and couldn't come because of money, right? So it was for international travel, if possible. I didn't know it was going to come, but I knew this was one way. And because, these things are expensive for a lot of people, though I tried to keep mine as affordable. And then I sent out word that I wanted to help support the international formation of a group, the formation of an international group that would tend together and work together. And I had no idea what this would look like, right? Now see, that's where something came through, life-changing, following. And first thing I know, there's a little note from here, and a little email from here, and a little email from here. And this is what resulted in Tending Sacred Circles, which is the nonprofit of which we just got official status this last year. Well, I feel terrific that I almost don't want to say this on film. I feel terrific that I've been able to put aside quietly my own way. Because we live on very limited income. Bob's retired, see? Right. And I have said I won't have my teaching be profit-making, it's work. So I want enough to cover my expenses and to bring in some money, but I don't want to get into the hole, right? And so really I was able to put aside enough by tithing to cover the cost of 2 people from Israel. Because that for me was a dangerous place, you know? I mean, so it was like whatever we can do as peacemakers to support it. And then other people came from other places on their own, you know, could afford it. And now we have this, I mean, it's just wonderful what's grown out of following that guidance, because there's this gathering at Oracle next spring in 2000, international gathering, and it's truly international. And it's 5 days at $235, which is not very much money, right? And we have a pot that's now officially legal with the IRS, into which you could pour however you choose, anyone, money to help for international travel, right? The person who I first met from Japan, Hideki's an accountant for a watch company in Japan. When I first met him, I saw in him, talk about seeing, that this fellow had Ainu bones. You know, I didn't know what that manner where he came from. It was just like given. But over time of talking with him and his teacher over there at the time at Esalen, I mean, this turns out to be the case. But here's a guy who has not much money at all. He has 2 children and a 3rd one on the way, right? But who's so dedicated. It's the fact, right? And so we made him an affiliate. So we chose those people who have been doing this, you know, as affiliates to help potentially get them to support in their own country, while we also support whatever we can. So, and then in Israel, it's just grown into the most incredible relationship with these 4 Israeli women, and now there are 3 Israeli men, and they're all coming to Oracle. And I'm going there in the year 2001 to do retreats, and we spent this last year about 6 weeks there, and just traveling with them, seeing through that shamanic perspective, experiencing the land. What are the spirits of this land? I've never been to Israel. What are the spirits of this place? What's it like? Going from the Sinai all the way up to the Golan Heights, you know. And I came away with one of the most powerful journeys in my whole life was going through that land, you know, all the way down, seeing the spirits there and receiving them, and all the different varieties of people, because they took us to all, you know, all those who fight with each other and so forth. And so now we're going to be going to Israel and doing a retreat in the Dead Sea and a retreat in Galilee, right? And my only requirement was that there must be Palestinian, Jewish, I mean, there must be Bedouin. I mean, I said we must have at least one person from to do this as a circle in this land, because this land holds all these people. And it's come about. And I'm just, you know, that's real. That's just real fulfilling, you know, to be allowed to be part of what happens when you follow. So attending sacred circles is a major focus of mine now. And we're using the internet a lot for it. And we start simply, we started just using our own monies, and this is our first, we've linked people on the solstices and equinox around the world. So we had 44 circles linked together, and each one writes what they're doing before they do it, what time of day, so that we started, you know, like Japan, Mongolia, you know, we know this drumming circle's picking up till you come to Hawaii, right? And then people write and post what they did or shared. And now more and more circles, right? And then Oracle, the gatherings at Oracle, which is right outside Tucson. Oracle is a setting where you're going to have some tenders, that's what we call ourselves, tending sacred. It's going to have some structure to the day, like drumming in the morning, just enough to sort of gently hold both all that come and the pathways for the spirit, just gently hold. And then people are coming and offering what they want to offer to other people or to the spirits of the earth, and it's not chaotic at all. It's not that kind of. Circles are already putting up on the web what they're going to offer, to the whole. Right. And my prayer is that we will really know and increase and manifest that we are truly linked as one around the world. And that we will know this in a very specific way, so that not only will we experience it at Oracle, but when I leave there, if you live in Mongolia, you and I will have an ongoing relationship that we will all cultivate together, and my visions and dreams of the last 2 years in this cave in Montana, the very cave, say we're coming into a dangerous time. And sometimes it comes in the form of tidal waves. Sometimes I see something blasting out in the Pacific Ocean, And by that I don't mean to alarm or anything else like that. But the spirits in this cave keep bringing songs that have to do with, you put out your hand, I'll put out mine. Take our hands together, tending with spirits. We'll find it really has to do with this building and linking, because big shifts are coming and already occurring. And they're going to be bigger and bigger. And exponentially faster. And so it's sort of like, this is going to happen, folks. It's already happened. It's going to and we need to cultivate and tend together our larger collective whole consciously. And practice together, support each other in our communities, and be real peace holders and makers. I just heard myself right. You can tell I have some passion around this.
And all from receiving guidance.
See, you asked me, and I realize now, you asked me about bear, the form. See, I think now what I understand is that when I said mothering, what I understand is that it's because think of Ursa Major, Big Dipper, Big Bear, Little Bear, and think of her going in the winter, and the cubs coming out, so rebirth. Think of that whole cycle. That really what what its shape and form and that power that was calling was and is this planet Earth is an incredibly beautiful jewel and very small in terms of the large cosmos, right? And we are in this together with all beings, right? And Bear is sort of the supreme carrier of wilderness consciousness. She is wilderness, right? And she's, as female, is fertile wilderness, right? And she is also the one who loves and will sacrifice and do anything necessary for her cubs, right? So Mother Earth is asking of us, the spirits, love me, the way a bear loves her cubs. Know the wilderness that is yours. This is your promised land. Know the wilderness that is yours, within you and here, right? Protect this wilderness, or the wilderness within you will die too. I mean, you will not know any wild, new, unexpected events, And so it's like, this was a shape saying, Carol, 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 help do whatever can be done to hold, protect, and love, give birth. Think of the coming generations, her children, do whatever. This is the covenant I'm asking of you. This is why your life has been spared here by me. This was my experience with her that way back then. Do this, and I said yes.
Still following.
Hmm?
And you're still following him.
Yeah, and that's and tending circuit circles. It's like you were talking about the circles. It's a little circle out from this. Not so little, but I mean it's a circle out. There are other ways. Yeah. But
I'm feeling that it's time.
you've graced us by coming to our home, to our land. So I would like to offer a song prayer to you and for you. And one for the whole. So I will just do both. Just move from one to the other. Mark. May you walk in beauty in a sacred way. May you walk in beauty each and every day. Oh, may you walk in beauty in a sacred way. May you walk in beauty each and every day. May the beauty of the fire fill your heart's desire. May the beauty of the rain take away your pain. Oh, may you walk in beauty in a sacred way. May you walk in beauty each and every day. May the beauty of this earth fill your heart with mirth. May the beauty of the sky lift your spirit higher. Yes, may you walk in beauty in a sacred way. May you walk in beauty each and every day. Oh, Mark, may you walk in beauty in a sacred way. May you walk in beauty in each and every day. Oh, may you walk in beauty in a sacred way. May you walk in beauty each and every day. May the beauty of the earth fill your heart with mirth. May the beauty of the rain take away your pain. Oh, may you walk in beauty in a sacred way. Walk with beauty each and every day. I call to the power of the thunder beings. I call to the power of the earth. I call to the power of the east and west. I call to the power of the north and south. Behold, the time has come. The time has come to unite as one. Behold, the time has come to encircle this earth with thy love. I call to the power of the thunderings. I call to the power of the earth. I call to the power of the east and west. I call to the power of the north and south. Behold, the time has come. The time has come to unite as one. Behold, the time has come to encircle this earth with thy love.